Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Inkylesconvo. It's great to be back, as I always say, and will continue to say. But now today's guest, I didn't actually know this until we had a really funny conversation that will stay between us before the show. And today's guest is only 18 and at university. And a lot of people might be like, "Oh, yeah, that's the normal," but like it's not. To me, that kind of blows my mind a little bit. As I said to today's guest, because I was like, that's one thing I wished I'd done was go to uni. It was different life circumstances, but anyway, it's admirable. So today's guest is Jack Walton. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all right. I appreciate your time as well. Like it means a
No,
lot,
you're
to be
welcome.
honest. Yeah, before we get into it, like, what was one of the main like before we get into like obviously the uni you're at and then everything else that you're involved in and things, what was one of the main driving factors to go to uni at such a young age, if you don't mind me asking?
I think that it came from my family, my granddad. My granddad actually played for Leicester when he was a young lad, and he played in their youth system, and he got a big injury, and then he took up football management. So growing up with him, having quite a close relationship with him, and inspired me to go on and sort of go into this football industry, and that supported by probably a work ethic that I gained through school, through just realizing that hard work was the only way I was gonna try and achieve these goals. So a mix of knowing that I needed to work hard and having a really supportive family and group of friends, and being in that environment where people are trying to push you on, is probably two of the main reasons that I wanted to go to university, and especially go to the university and study the course that I'm currently doing.
Yeah, you're studying a course on football coaching and management and sports and exercise. That's. So I take it like you're saying that was because you're following in his footsteps and the type of thing to do eventually what he did.
Yeah, it was. I played football younger, but realised that it probably wasn't what I wanted to go into, and I probably wouldn't be able to go into it as a career. So I actually thought that I thought I would struggle coaching, being a football coach, but instead I thought, well, if other people are doing it, why can't I? And that's probably the reason why I'm doing it now. And it's the love for the game. I grew up supporting Grimsby Town Football Club, and I go into watch them when I was 4 or 5 years old with my dad, and that really got me into it again. And seeing watching football for years, I thought, well, why can't I do that? I know I can't play on the pitch, and what else can I do to influence the game, and how can I learn about it? I've got a lot of time, so I should probably put the hard work in.
Yeah, exactly. It's very true, and I think that the fact, again, you're doing it when you're younger as well, will definitely play in your favor when it comes to like getting a job and getting various different things, and it did. So you're obviously, like we're saying, you're currently at uni, but you're I told you I'm tempted to get this name right, but it's Valais Club de Football. Is that right?
Yeah,
that's
that's
go.
correct.
I actually joked about it when we started. I was like, I always mess up names. It's no disrespect. I just not very good at pronouncing names. But so like, again, well done on your internship as well. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
How does for those of obviously people will know how internships work, but say someone's like, I don't get an internship. How does it work? What is it? Do you want to explain about like what is it? What you do and how it works and things like that to people.
Okay, so an internship is essentially work experience. Being able to, an organisation will offer you a role or certain responsibilities that will help them fulfil what they need to achieve, and then you will almost act as a worker. Some are voluntary, some are paid, and you will gain work experience. And I think it's a really good opportunity for me personally. Like I mentioned previously, I wanted to do football coaching, but I thought why not explore other opportunities? And I thought, well, I feel like football scouting something that's really interests me. I observe things quite well. I'm quite detailed. I pay a good attention to detail. So why not let's try to explore this route? And I got the opportunity to do it with Velez, and now I'm I'll be set 4 players every week. I'll watch 3-4 games of each player. I'll take some notes, some key points. I'll reflect on them. I'll think, well, should I include that? What was that right? Yeah, it was. And then I will write reports on each player and speak to the staff and go off and sort of do my own thing. If there's a player who I like, I'll speak to the chief scout about why that player would suit the football club. And I think I've been quite successful. I haven't been doing it for too long, but it's a really good chance, an internship, to put yourself out there and try and make a name for yourself from not a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's that, as well as it's good for you to like experience, like you're saying, different parts of the industry, because you're saying obviously football management, but if you've got experience in scouting as well, you're going to know what scouts are coming to you, and you already know what it's going to say, the emails, how they're going to look. It's probably your benefit to do things like that as well when it comes to wanting to be a football coach, to be honest with you. It stands in good stead, as the saying goes. But say when what year are you in currently at your university?
I'm a first year student at the minute.
First year, yeah. So see, when in your summer times, do you stay in halls as well?
No, I won't be. No, I won't stay in halls for the summer.
No, I meant like just now. Now.
Right now.
Yeah, right. Just now, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in student halls. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just because I was gonna so when you go home, or because I'm not sure where you are. Obviously, we don't need to tell people exactly where you stay, but wherever when you go home, will you be working on football scouting in the summertime, and then obviously go back to halls, and then so on and so on?
Yeah. So it's well, I'm a video scout, so it means that I'm able to do it at any time, and it's sort of it's an all year round thing. So as you know, the January window just happened. It's really big for football clubs, and we're constantly working. It could be 2 months down the line, you'll be prepping for the summer transfer window. You'll be working constantly all year round. I'll be doing this, different players every week, and it's just that cycle of keeping up to date, storing, having sort of almost a database really that you're just updating. And again, in the summer, another big transfer window comes, and that's where the focus turns to.
Yeah, exactly. If you were like, I'm curious as well, if you were to get the opportunity to go, we'll talk about management just now. So if you were to get the opportunity to go somewhere, how you hear about, as people know, we've had various different people on a show that have went to like different countries, and Chicago and stuff like that. But if you had to say to somewhere, it doesn't need to be America, obviously, a different country, where would you say that you'd like, I really want to go there to coach? Or is it literally Scotland or England?
I've always said I'd like to go to China, because
wow,
being again young, I think there's 2 sides to football in China. There's one side which is there's a lot of money there, so it gives yourself it gives especially young coaches, a sort of a foundation to be financially stable. Which being at university, it's something that a lot of students struggle with. So when they get that opportunity, it feels like freedom almost. And then there's the cultural side to it. I've spoke to a number of coaches, scouts who have been over in China, and I've watched some football that goes on there, and it really interests me. And I think there's a big market for it over there, because look at the money people pay over there, and clearly it's well followed. So I think I'd like to experience a different type of culture. to where I currently am anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've actually personally seen and met some Chinese players in the sense of like when they've been in this country, just through different people I know and connections and weird situations that I'll tell you some other time, that I ended up meeting some football players, and they're like, players over here are dedicated and are driven, and it's amazing to see, but players over there are like next level dedicated and next level. But again, like you're saying, though, I think it does come down to the money aspect. Like they get paid, a lot over here, like a lot, mainly down south players, I should say, or top SPL players, but over there they get paid like a lot more, sometimes double what we get. It's mental. But do you think like how you see like players that how like for example, a lot of times that when a player's going to a team, it's like so and so's getting paid like 200,000 a week, 100,000 a week, and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's actually like do you think it's a good thing to put out there? Because sometimes I think it can end up meaning that players only go for the money rather than what they love, if that makes sense. Do you think it's actually a good thing that they put the salaries out there?
I think it's a big debate. We hear a lot about footballers get paid too much money. Again, probably because that's all we're hearing. We're hearing the people who get paid 300,000, 400,000 pound a week. We don't hear about the players who are getting 300, 400, 500 pounds a week in the National League and League Two, and even below that. We don't consider that, and I think we almost forget that some of these players, I've seen it. Some of these players who are on top money, we have to remember they put in. I'm not going to make any excuses and say they deserve their money, because they get paid a hell of a lot of money for what they do, and that's a very different debate. But they almost give up their family. The children can't see it. When dad has to go to Istanbul, to Spain, to Italy to play in European competitions, there's no the children, their families are almost missing out, aren't they? They're there for 2 or 3 days, and then they're going somewhere else. They're playing football at the weekend. They've got to train. I think they are. We forget that these players are people, and we just think that, oh well, they're earning £500,000 a week. They shouldn't be getting this. Well, they're actually people, and let's be honest. If we get offered that sort of opportunity, although the sacrifice they do make big sacrifice, because it's a completely different lifestyle, we're going to take it. And I think we need to weigh up the sacrifice a bit more. But putting those figures out there now, it certainly doesn't help, because that's all that gets. We know that from reading this, it's all that gets jailed in their head. Most people, when they read football, professional footballers, they think, wow, 600,000, but £500,000 a week, £300,000 a week. Well, what about the ones who earn £200 a week, £300 a week?
Yeah, I think again, like I just want to emphasize and saying that as well, is that I'm totally with you as well. They do deserve the money they get. I'm very it's very weird. I'm on that side of the debate, and the reason why I'll say it is that you only play football for like an aim of 35, 36, something like that. Like, obviously I know there is older football players. I'm not stupid, but to get the big money, you need to be a younger player. I mean, some of these guys that are like Borussia Dortmund, and I wouldn't name any players in particular, but Real Madrid and your big teams, Barcelona, even Man United, even Man City now, and Tottenham, they're another ones that are paying huge prices. But at the end of the day, if you're only playing football probably at a high rate for maybe 5 years, and you've got your sponsorships are like after you stop playing for, we'll just use one of the teams I said, after you stop playing for Real Madrid, if you're going from, to Tottenham or Arsenal or just any random team, you need to like get another sponsor. If you don't get that sponsor, you don't get paid any more money. So I'm one of the people that like, I get it. It's a lot of money. I mean, it's a heck of a lot of money. Some people don't even retire. Like the average person doesn't even retire on 100 grand. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, if you're able to get paid that money, and if you're able to put yourself in that position, you kind of deserve it a little bit. You know what I mean? And you're only going to get it for so long. And if you injure yourself, you're done. You lose everything. That's the daunting part. I feel for the players as well, because they do get a lot of like stick when it comes to that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, if somebody else was getting 200 grand a week and the player was getting 200 grand a week for playing football, they're not going to be the ones complaining. It's the people that it's envious and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, you're totally right. I think that, and you've got players that just went to PSG for like 140 million and stuff, which is absolutely crazy money. Like it's crazy. But the only thing that worries me about that is it's putting it might, one, be an off-put to players because some of them will never earn that because they're not at that level, or two, it might actually, people might try to get in the industry just because of the money. That's my biggest concern. What's your opinion on that one?
I think that's a fair thing to say. I think there's been quite a lot of people, especially who've gone into become football intermediaries, agents. It's a new name anyway. And because of the money in the game, I think that would be fair to say. I think we need to remember again how difficult it is to actually, what if you were at that level where the say 140 million pounds is. You are you are at the top of that, you are at the top of the industry. Everything outside of football, it sort of doesn't matter because you're so focused on the training, the physiotherapy, the diet. There's a lot of commitment, but no, I think it's a difficult one, but I think a lot of people do go into the industry nowadays for the money, especially agency, intermediary sort of level.
It's a shame as well, but again, I think it's very like I think if they kept the salaries of the players quiet and never really let them go and never really put them out there, it would be interesting to see what actually happened, to be honest with you. You never know. Me saying that they might not put the players' salaries out next year, which totally will happen. But yeah, anyway, so it's not about the players because I'm pretty sure you don't get paid 100 million a year or 400 grand a week. You know what I mean? So now you're and I'm always wondering as well, and I was curious to see what you say in this one because everybody I've asked this to is, they say the same thing. But was that the reason you got into coaching as such? Was because like you like you said, you weren't a good enough player, so you were like, oh, I went into coaching? Or do you think, like personally, like you don't need to be like, oh, I was going to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo, because like it is what it is. But you could be like, if you could have made it as a player, would you have went down the player route instead of the management route, or was it genuinely the management route you wanted to do?
I think that if I could have been a player, I probably would have. I think nowadays, this is my opinion, anybody who can be a player will be a player. Reason being, from the ages of 8, 9, 10, we've seen it. There was an article not long ago about the 4-year-old who was scouted at Arsenal, and it was quite amazing. Those people they are brought up playing football, being around footballers, being in the industry, acting a certain way, training at a certain level, and they're brought up from a very young age, especially with the parents. Again, that's a massive subject with the parents. While are all focused on bringing their children up to be footballers. That no, I don't think that for me and everybody else, if I could have been a footballer, I don't think I would have realised what I wanted to do, because you're not given that opportunity. There's a big emphasis on, right, you want to be a footballer. We're a football club. We're going to try and make you a footballer. And then sort of when you're released at 17, 18 years old, you can still do it, but you tend to fall out of love. The connection breaks up with football, with players, because it's difficult to take. And I don't think people are given the opportunity now to go into coaching and management only when they realise that actually I'm probably not good enough to do that, but I still love the game. I still want to be involved in it, and I still want to have an influence on it. And how can I do it? I can learn about it. There's a lot of research going into football now. It's it's starting to become its own profession, and I think that's the reason I've gone into it, because I realised I was lucky, because I realised when I was 14 or 15 years old that I wasn't going to be a player, and I didn't want to be actually at that point, because it just seemed like football was going in a different direction. So if I could take the route that I am doing now and have an influence on changing that direction, that's what else can you ask for?
Yeah, and again, it's admirable, because I think that's something that a lot of people can't do. You kind of admitted the flaw that you had, that you were like, I'm not going to be a football player, and you're able to admit that at such a young age, which again, all what's the word? All quartz to you, or whatever, or the word. I think that's the word. It's an old lifestyle. I think that's what you say. Quartz, maybe. I know quartz is a stone. Anyway, that's relevant. It's all admirable to be honest with you, to be able to admit you had flaws in that you were like, I'm not going to do it, but I still want to be involved. So you went the coaching route. If and I know you are only 18 in that, which at 8, again, I know I said at the start of the podcast, but 18 at uni is like, it may seem like somebody's going to hear this and be like, obviously, Kyle, everybody goes to uni at 18. It's like, well, not when I was 18. And I'm only 27. Not when I was 18. That was not the thing you did. But like, we're in a totally different world now. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's good for you as well, by the way, again. But if you were to do football management, and I know you said you're following the steps of, and I wonder if, like, what do you think you would do? As if you got anything else in mind? Like, if football management wasn't, I always call it a judgment day plan. And I think for someone your age, just again, personal opinion to anyone that's listening or watching, I think when you're younger, it makes sense to have a judgment day plan. So you've got, I know people say don't do that because then you might not put 110% effort into the one thing, but I think it's a safety net just to keep your mind at ease, to keep your mental health, which I did say, we'll talk about in a little while. But do you have a judgment day plan? You're like, I could go and do this or this or this, or is it just like, no, football coaching and I'm all in on that?
I think I think if you got to relate it back to your morals, your own beliefs. I grew up in you might have Skegness, which was quite a deprived area, really. And when I was, probably 13 or 14 years old, I used to go down and help out with a local organisation, and people, kids used to turn up without football boots, and like a massive lack of parental support, and it was you used to see them out at 10, 11 o'clock at night kicking the football on the streets, and that's really close to me. And I think that if I was going to do something else, I would like to have my own football organisation around a local community to offer some sessions, some support, not even if it was for other people to run, and obviously you're saying different to football management, just for other people to run, just to get, if you can make that difference and get 1 or 2 kids coming to your session who probably wouldn't have been doing something positive, or they weren't in a good place, or they weren't with good people and they was doing some bad things, that makes a real difference, because you're almost a role model to these people. And that's the way I looked at it when I was with these little kids who, come with the wrong footwear or didn't turn up on time, had no transport. At the end of the day, if their parents aren't there, all they've got is their school, their friends, and you. So when you're there, you have a big influence, because they usually act how you act. So you take a big responsibility. So I think that's what I would like to do if I didn't do football management.
Yeah, good for you. I didn't know that. I didn't know you did that. Wow, that's wow. That's and as well as like I asked, we were talking before the show about various different things. But one thing I did ask is how old you were, and the reason I don't normally ask people that, to be honest with you, but it was just uni, and then obviously I seen your LinkedIn, and I was like, something like, I knew you were younger than me. Most people are. Not that makes me sound really old, but I'm not. But yeah, the most people, and the thing is as well, is that you're quite mature for your age as well. Going to uni, being headstrong and being driven, like some other people we've had on the show as well, that that are of similar age of yourself. Is that like because are you and obviously you can explain to us a little bit more about it, but is that because, like you're saying, you have seen what the other side's like not having the parents and not having the support, or is that just like you're naturally like because you know what you want to do and stuff like that, you're naturally grown up, if that makes sense? If that question makes sense, Tom?
Yeah, no, it made perfect sense. I think that it's been a bit through having previous experiences, through having mental health issues with when a few years ago, especially with the pandemics, it was going through a really, really difficult time, and I sort of got lost in my own way and nearly went down, a different path. And seeing and being around the people who aren't focused on what they want to do made me think, well, life's what you make it, and there's a few different paths. If you want to do that, that's brilliant. But for me personally, why not make a difference? And again, these being through these mental health issues, suffering with things like, so with depression and anxiety at such a young age, made me look back and think, well, actually, that's a career path I want to do. Make it happen. No one's going to do it for me. I used to speak to some support staff, and people can only do so much for you. I realised once I leave here, you got to do it for yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. Why not take responsibility, put your name out there, see what people think of you, and actually you can do something. You can do something good. It's not that difficult. If I can do it, the next person can do it. And that's what I say to people. If I'm doing what I'm doing, it's I'm only 18. People can, anybody can do this. Anybody, just it's mindset. Just change your mindset. That's what I used to do, and it's I've had that different mindset where I didn't want to do this, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to enjoy myself, it's fine. But changing that mentality is really, really important. Staying focused, keeping on it, trying to do good things, acting professional. Just these they are little things. Changing your daily routine, going to, getting sleep, getting exercise, things like that make you realise that what's important. And I think I know it's quite strange, really. I don't really know the full answer myself, but it's just a maturity thing. Seeing the ones who aren't, it just makes me more determined every day.
Yeah, 100%. And again, sorry to hear about your mental health issues and that's a subject. It's not a touchy subject for people as such, because I think as people we need to admit we need to talk about mental health more. Not too much, because again it comes down to the too much of something's not good. And I've said this before to people, and they said, what do you mean by that? And I said that when it comes to talking about mental health all the time, I think it can sometimes be bad for you, because you're constantly thinking about the negatives. You need to think about the positives. And I do think that talking about mental health does help, because it helps identify your flaws. It helps you identify like your things like that. But it's again, and you may be able to, you'll be able to, I'm sure you'll be able to correct me on this one, but the link between mental health and football, as in it being great for your mental health, is huge. And I'll fully admit, as I said before, that we started, and as people know, I'm a huge fan of football, the game, not necessarily a team, I just like the game because of what it actually does for people's mental health. They build friends, build camaraderie. If someone's feeling down in the dumps, you've got like, X amount of other players, and then you've got the coaching staff, and then you've got management, and then you've got like all those sorts of people supporting you. So it's amazing to see, to be honest. But the link between your, as you were saying, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but your mental health and football, is it like that? Because you've seen the team camaraderie, and you were like, if football and management like the road you went down is actually helping your mental health? Is that because do you think as well as that you might be like, oh, I can help people with mental health problems as well because I know what it's like? That type that type of thing, if I'm right?
For me personally, a lot of mental health was because I like to stay productive. I like to be on my mind needs to be focused on something all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be. It's I'm in a cycle where it needs to be focused on things quite regularly. If I can't sit there, I struggle to sit there for an hour, 2 hours, and just not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite difficult, but it does help. Football, where I remember that feeling when Saturday finally comes and you can go with your dad, get in the car, go and watch the football, have something to eat. It's brilliant. And I remember when I was younger, we used to see things, physical health. It was all physical health, wasn't it? To play some football. It's good for your physical health.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's one thing that schools need to adjust, because we're all aware of physical health now. We're all aware of it. A lot of people, we struggle with it in the world. A lot of people seem to struggle with it, and that's still important. It's really important. But we have, schools emphasize PE, physical education, for why not mental education? That's one thing I'm really big on, because it's what, physical education, mental education. The difference is we're probably not educated on one of them well enough.
Mm-hmm.
We have lots of staff in schools for one, and there's very little support for the other. So I think it's a big problem. But I'm glad that we can all struggle with mental health, that football's now available for anybody. It's inclusive now. It's equal. It's diverse to a certain level, and that means that I agree. Playing football, it's proved. Research suggests that the mental health benefits are big, and they have been for me. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I like that what you just said. And mental education. That's wow. That's a powerful. That'd be a powerful class. Okay, so I put this to you just off you saying that. If in mental education, what do you think you should be taught? Do you think you should be taught how to recognize it, how to help it, how to develop it, how to like get better? What if someone was to come to you and be like, listen, I liked what you said, mental education. Let's implement it in like your local school or uni. There we go. Your uni sees this and like your uni, but they're like, what would you do to put it in place? So, what would you do to put it in place?
Well, it certainly have to be different to physical education, because physical, it takes time. We do it. It's an hour, 2 hour sessions, because we're moving. It could even be that every student, every person is given a 15-20 minute appointment weekly, and the first one, we go through signs, symptoms. How are you? Just very, very simple conversation, similar to counselling, but the help out there, what we can do. And maybe we'd be saying to these people, can you do this? Physical education, we don't, that's compulsory. We have to do that, because you bring your stuff, they tell you what you're going to do, and you do that, right? So this should be, again, similar route. Can you just do that? Can we do that? Can we do that? Can we make sure that we're not, we get at least 7-8 hours sleep? Can we go for a 20-minute walk 2 days a week? They're just little things. Can you come up to me on this day and say, yeah, no, I'm okay? And there should be, that sounds quite unrealistic. But given the staff that we have for physical education, why can't we make sure that everybody is supported in that way? Because we all know that although there's the effects of bad physical health is clearly, there's a lot of it from obesity, but we also know that the mental health and the people who have lost their lives and the people who are really struggling with it is, again, just as significant, in my opinion. So if we are so supportive to this one, and there's a lot of support from the NHS for this, and we hear about obesity, I guess, especially in different nations, why aren't we supporting this one just the same with the same number of staff? People should be reminded about it because it's just as important, isn't it?
Yeah, wow, that's a powerful message, to be honest with you, and good for you as well, by the way. I think that's I would never tell, as everybody knows, I never tell anybody what to do, because it's not each to their own, really. But that's something that I think you should actually be involved in. We can maybe speak about that off the podcast, a different bit, but I think I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, to be honest with you, about something. But the thing I kind of want to, because you said you had some mental health issues and stuff like that, and I think you so like we could kind of relate that back to obstacles. Like the obstacle was the mental health. So how, if obviously we won't go down a certain route, because I realize you've got personal stuff and that's, keep it to yourself, but how did you overcome your mental health? And if somebody is struggling with because you know a lot about mental health, so I'm curious just to pick your brain on it, and I'm sure you won't mind that. If somebody's struggling with mental health, what did you do to get over it, and then how do you think that could help somebody else that's struggling with their mental health?
Well, I actually had quite a strange route. The one thing I was willing to do, which a lot of people aren't, was talk about it. And but it's a case of not how much you talk about it, it's who you talk about it to. I spoke to a counsellor, some support. Didn't help me really whatsoever. But the minute I surrounded myself with family, like my granddad, or people who really cared about me, and just think about the people who make you smile, the people who love you for you, the people who will be there for the rest of your life. Surround yourself with these people and help them to put a smile on your face. If someone can put a smile on your face and engage you in some conversation, you will gain confidence from that. Gaining this confidence, that once my mental health was ruined, my confidence went through the ground. And it came to university, and I actually spoke to one of my lecturers, and they says, what's wrong? I says, well, I've got no confidence. How am I meant to go out and coach when I've got no confidence? It came from doing it, speaking to people, laughing about things. Just, it's really difficult to do, because I understand when you're in that mindset that it's almost like you're trapped. It's really difficult to get out of it. But I would say to any person out there struggling, speak about it to the people who really care, the people who will listen to anything that you say, and the people who make you smile and gave you that confidence that you had previously, and that should help you at least. That's what worked for me.
Honestly, great words. Well said as well. And I'm physically the same. Physically, mentally the same is what I meant to say there. I'm just thinking about the way you were saying it. Just some of the stuff you're saying is like, wow, it's very like it's stuff that we need to listen to, I should say. And I was the same. I went to a therapist and stuff like that when I was younger. And the thing that I couldn't get over, and this sounds, I get the mick taken out of me when I say this question, but when I went in, I was like, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to like go out for food, I'm going to go see my brother, my mom, all this sort of stuff, whatever. And I was like, so what are you doing? Like, what have you got planned and stuff like that? Because I don't open up to people easily, so I need to like find a connection, and then once I found the connection, it's like switch. So I can't tell you that. I was like, oh, where are you going? Have you got a favorite restaurant or anything like that? You don't need to tell me where. I can't tell you that. I can't do this. I can't tell you anything about me whatsoever. I can just tell you my name. I can't even tell you my second name. But I was like, I can see your second name. She was like, oh, and she used to turn her badge around and stuff. And I was like, nah, I can't do this, because I'm telling somebody my life problem stuff I wouldn't even tell myself. if that makes you, I'm sure you'll know exactly what I mean by that. And so I was the same. I went to my mum and told her everything. She didn't know a lot of stuff because I don't open up at all to anybody. But like, yeah, you're so right. I think that it's sometimes the people around you that you need to, like, you're like, oh, I don't know if this person will listen. I don't know if they'll care. I don't know if they'll this. I don't know if they'll that. And even though they love you, they're like, I don't know if they'll care because, you know, they've maybe got their own issues they just don't want to bother you with. And you'd be so surprised that that if you do actually open up to people like that, it's mental health. It's mental, literally. It's crazy that they're like, I'm so glad you opened up. I could tell there was something wrong. I didn't want to say because I didn't want to hurt your feelings and stuff like that. And it's like, whoa, this mental is the word again. It's crazy. I think it's something that I think to open, this is a very bold statement I'm about to say. I think to open up your true potential as a human, you need to be able to identify, one, all your flaws, one, if you have any issues, and one, if you actually got mental health issues, you need to be able to admit it to yourself. Very bold statement. It's such a true statement. I'm sure you'll agree as well. It's not a bad statement. It's just that if you can fully identify all those sort of things, and I'm not saying like go out and solve them, but if you can identify them and you know they're there and you're working on them, you'll actually be surprised at how, you know, far it pushes you forward. Like yourself, I mean, you're very like you've clearly done that. You've clearly sat down. Like, it's not as if like we're saying this and you've had an epiphany. You've clearly sat down and clearly been like, you know, this is the issues. This is what's happening. You know, I think something that's admirable about yourself as well, and I'm sure you knew this. I'm sure you'll agree that if you had, like you're saying, I could say I didn't know you when you did play football, but I'm sure if when you did play football and you tried to go professional and it didn't work, that would have hurt your mental health more than if you'd actually just went down the route you went down, if I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I agree because I can speak on behalf of other people who have done exactly the same. I know a few people who were at Grimsby Town who were, you know, they were let go, and other Boston United, and similar, you know, they were quite local clubs to myself at the time, and but there's a spin on that, you know. Some people, again, like I said earlier, they fall completely out of love with the game. They resist, you know, they resist it. They need to do something different because that's it's a psychological thing. Again, we're talking about mental health, but then there's the spin on that it brings you actually closer, and you become more motivated and determined. I think that's what, once you've done that, what we was talking about, the flaws that you've identified of yourself, use it as motivation. Use it as motivation, because if you don't, they start to become weaknesses a little bit, and they grow and they grow and they grow. Like, but yeah, use them as motivation, and it should be okay.
Yeah, awesome. Honestly, well, we're not ending the podcast now. I'm just like well said on anything mental health. I think that it's very admirable to yourself how you can actually admit that at your age, because like I told you before the podcast, that will stay between us. I definitely wasn't in a position to do that. It just wasn't, just to do it. Just, I can admit to myself I wasn't, but I wished I did. But then again, you can't live like that, because then that actually affects your mental health more because you have regrets. Life is crazy. Life is very weird. But anyway, let's talk about a little bit more about yourself, because I'm curious as well. In the next 5 years or so, we'll say 5 years, because again, that's not, well, and say in the future, because 5 years, or what's your 5 year plan? That's very cliche. So what's your future plans then when you leave uni, and or even maybe even at uni? There's two questions. We'll do what's at uni, what's your plans? And then obviously for the next, your whole entire time you're there. And then when you leave uni, what's your plans?
Whilst I'm at university, I'd like to develop a specific, a very narrow subject that I'm interested in. I think I'm starting to work that out and sort of do more research into that specific field within football. That's one aspect. I'd like to do some more research into it. You know, write some articles and things like that. That'd be a really good thing to be able to do. I'd like to progress with, you know, my scouting, and I'm currently coaching at Rochdale AFC women's at the minute as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to. I have some goals. I've just took over an under-13s team. I'd like to. Again, I think every coach's aim. I'd like to make them better players, but if I could say they were more rounded people as well. I think that's one thing. So that's while I'm at university.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, there'll be a break-off point, I think, where I either go into coaching or scouting. But I do enjoy coaching, a lot. I'd like to go into academy coaching. That's my real ambition, with little ones like I'm currently coaching, and between the ages of 10 to 14, because I think again, they are still people. I know they're in a football club, that you meet many who have been in similar situations to myself growing up. So I think that would be a real, to make a difference to those people would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And would you, if you could get in more into coaching, obviously as you are in that, is there a certain, like you're saying, China, is there a certain, but if you weren't able to go over there for some odd reason, where would you say you'd like to go in the UK? Like, is there a certain team you would like to go to, or maybe an area, or is it just, have you not really?
I quite like the Manchester, the northwest sort of like area. I quite like it. There's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of football clubs there, and again, some really deprived areas, and like there is everywhere. But I think that there's a big network of football clubs there. So if I could get myself into that region, that'd be quite nice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you're willing to travel, willing to relocate as well, like to different, just to wherever the job kind of takes you, type thing.
100%. Yeah, I moved 4 hours for university, so I'm willing. It doesn't bother me where I am. I'm not afraid of travel. I'm not afraid of going to different environments, cultures. That's something that I think I thrive off, but it takes time to settle in. So. But it's something that I want to do. Traveling, something that I'd like to do as well. I'm big on that. My family my dad particularly travelled the world. He's travelled the world, so it's something that I'd like to do at some point.
Wow, that's awesome. Why did, if you don't mind me asking, why did he travel the world, or is that just he just wanted to do it? Was it like recently, or was it like a while ago?
It was when he was a lot younger. It was a mix between wanting to travel in the world, and he used to follow England football team across the world. So he's been to when he's been to watch players like Ruud Gullit play and Beckenbauer and players like that. He was a big England supporter, so he used to go traveling across the world for that, as well as he genuinely liked traveling to see culture and sightseeing like Niagara Falls and things like that. He's spoken to me about, so that's something I'd like. It's quite inspirational.
Yeah, yeah. Especially to have inspiration. Is that why you're quite an inspirational guy then, like motivated guy, because your family's like that, or genuinely is it because they're not, obviously they're not pushing you, but because they're like that, they've done so much stuff. Is that why you're quite a motivated person as well?
Yeah, perhaps they were very much inspirational again at my age, but I would say that now they're not. Then they are very, they motivate me. They're inspirational to me, but overall, they just do their own thing. But again, that's something I try to look at people. I try to look at things that I would do differently to other people and say, well, I've done that because I've seen that's the way that person did it. I'm not saying that's wrong. They might have told me they didn't enjoy doing it that way, but how would I would do it right now? Look at things. How would I do that differently in 20 years time? If I do that in 40 years time, how would I do that differently? If I get the opportunity to do it like that. If it goes wrong, goes wrong. But if you can work, if people have said that that's not how they would want to do it, like I've heard of, they were inspirational, but they're just doing their own thing now, and they stopped certain things that we're doing. Like my granddad, he stopped being a football manager, and he couldn't be that person anymore because he changed and he wanted to do something different, and instead follow that on. And he's told me to do that. You should do this, but that doesn't mean I have to do it. But it's something that I want to do, because if someone said that they didn't enjoy doing that, or they've done that thing wrong, why? If you hear that again and again, why? So actually, if you get the chance to do it that way and experience it.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, is there, if you had to set yourself, we'll say 3 goals, right? Because I think it's good to, I've said before in the podcast, and as people know about like multiple different, like if you set yourself a handful of goals, but I think top 3 from speaking to people, off the podcast and then on it and various different issues, in very different situations, I should say, is that if you had to set yourself 3 top goals for the next, we'll say 10 years, because I know what we've just went over what you want to do, but what people do and then their goals are usually different things. Like they're 2 different kind of avenues, because it's a different way of looking at it. What would you say is like your top 3 goals you've got for the next, we'll say, I know it's very cliche, but we'll say for the next 10 years?
I'd like to learn 2 or 3 different languages. I'm learning Spanish at the minute as well, so I'm trying to learn a few different languages. That's a goal outside of what I've said that I'd definitely be interested in doing. Going into academy coaching, but not in England again. Like I said, travel in a different country. That's a big goal, and probably again traveling the world and going to quite a few number of countries. I think they're the 3 at the minute. They might change, but they're just at the minute, I suppose.
That's awesome. Yeah. What about okay, so what other countries? China, that's an awesome one. It's somewhere I've always wanted to go, but I sometimes get like claustrophobic. So me around a lot of people, I can do it obviously, but I don't know. I don't like, it's not my thing. But so rural China where I would go, to be honest with you. But if apart from China, then where's some other countries? We'll say I won't put a cap on it, because you might have loads of different. Where were some other countries you'd quite like to go to work in football and things?
You might have heard of this one, Scandinavia.
I have, yeah.
You might have heard
of the show that said that before, yeah.
Yes, because obviously Graham Potter's story there. Grimsby Town, the team I grew up watching, they had a manager called Michael Jolly. You might have heard of him. He came through Burnley. He started in England and he came through Burnley. He was mentored by Sean Dyche. And then he went to Sweden to manage his first team, and then he came to Grimsby. And I still scouting again. I get to see a lot of the Swedish, or a little bit of the Swedish style of football. But to know that there is a big market out there for 100%, Graham Potter done a great job of it. That's a country I would I'd certainly like to go to. Think of another one for you. Actually, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's very.
Them 2 are probably 2 countries that I've quite China and Sweden that I'd like to go to.
Yeah, you're not the only person to say that, especially people that are currently involved. And will the show be up? You know what? I'm not going to tell you the guy's name, but the show will be up. But I'm not going to tell you his name, because you can all go and find out. But his name begins with a D. There's a little hint for everybody that wants to go and take a look. But he said the exact, and I'll tell you off the podcast. So you'll get a scoop. But I like to finish off on some questions, and just various different things. And I think it'd be good to get your point of view on it being younger, because it's fair enough me saying it. Again, like I'm so old. I'm only 27, so it's like I'm really old. I'm not, but your view on it would be interesting, because I think it applies to you. To be honest with you, do you think you should watch what you put in social media in terms of representing yourself and your job and things like that? Now that social media, when you're my age, like I sound really old, but it's true, when you're my age, social media is just going to be way more bigger than what it is. So as people say, like your phone is your third leg, so it's going to be literally going to be implemented on you. It's a staple of yourself. So do you think you should watch what you post on social media, because jobs can see it and things like that, and they might not hire you? Or what's your opinion on that?
Personally, I think I would like it to be. I would like my answer now to be no. I would like it's a free world. I would like to live in a world where you wouldn't have to worry about what you post on social media. Unfortunately, you've probably heard this lots of times. We're brought to a situation where we have to, because everything we post, I'm sure you've seen some athletes been charged or been fined or been it's been put on by Sky Sports and different news outlets that they found comments of them from 10 years ago or 5 years ago and things like that. It's crazy, to be honest. And I think, no, it is really important because, again, I'm sure someone else will have said this to you, but a lot of football clubs tell you to be careful with what you put on social media because you are a role model, and we use football as a way to portray a certain attitude, a certain way of acting. We're competitive, but we're not no violence, no racism. All these sort of these morals, and but we have to be really careful because even as people, it influences the sort of our career. Tomorrow we can get a certain job. This time next month, given if we put something on social media that's ridiculous, we can't get any job. So it's football clubs will tell you have to act to a certain standard. You have to portray yourself in a certain way, and you have to be professional. So unfortunately, we do, but we shouldn't have to worry about those things, but we do.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes down to that as well. Is that you're representing. It's a weird one. It's a weird way of looking at it, to be honest with you. But a lot of people relate to me when I say this, that you're actually representing your family as well. Because of what you say, you act, as you quite rightfully said, you act to your surroundings. So those kids were listening to you, acting the way you were acting. You're mature, so you kind of had to mature yourself up because you knew if I act, silly or play about or something like that, that's how they're going to act. So like it's a weird one. But you do represent your family when you post on social media and stuff, because it looks bad to be like, oh, my child's posting that, he's bullying this person, or he's writing comments that are just shouldn't be on social media anyway, or all this sort of stuff. There's that side to it as well. But yeah, I mean, good answer, to be honest with you. Now, again, I'll say to yourself that, very motivated person, very driven person, got a lot of great ideas as well. And one that I'm sure you've noticed that I pointed out to you, that you should definitely go down the avenue, especially while at university, because that's going to look amazing on you. Just being brutally honest with you. It's such a great, fantastic idea as well. But you're pursuing not the normal 9 to 5. I'm sure you'll admit yourself to that one. You're kind of doing what you love every day. So if there was someone out there that is unsure if they should not leave the 9 to 5, because obviously that's not my choice or your choice, but if they're like, I kind of want to go and follow it, and their decision is to leave their 9 to 5 and they want to go and follow their dream, or to do what they love every day, what would you say to that person?
I'd say go for it, because you only get one chance to do it. And if you've had an ambition and a goal that you wanted to fulfill, the only person that's going to stop that is you. If you want to do it, go and do it. You can be as good as anybody else. Why not? Yeah,
and like honestly, that's such an amazing thing to say as well, because I think people don't. I think what people do is they end up identifying, as I said before, identifying the flaws that affects their mental health. So they just stay in their job. They kind of stay in your zone. But as they say, if you're not willing to leave your comfort zone, you're never going to find out what your new comfort zone is. Because everybody has their dream, but then you have a comfort zone, and if you don't leave that, there'll be another comfort zone waiting for you, but you just won't do it. Like it's crazy. But with yourself as well, just before we go, I think it'd be great to end on this positive note. That apart, obviously, like I'm sure you know, before we get people's social medias, we help them, we promote them and things like that as well. But before that, and it's quite a tough question, this, but I think it'd be good for yourself. What would you personally say were your flaws professionally and then personally? Like, once you want to admit, obviously, what would you say they were?
Overthinking. That's, again, I've seen a quote saying that's one of the biggest triggers of mental health. But overthinking is something that's a family trait. That's something that I've got from my mum, and it's not very. It's really difficult because you overanalyze everything. That's a real bit. That's a big flaw. Another flaw was routine. Staying in a positive routine, going to, getting a certain amount of sleep, waking up, getting something to eat in the morning, doing what I wanted to do that day. Look back on the day and say, but I wasn't doing that. I was especially after the lockdowns, I was staying in a really rough routine, and that's a flaw for a lot of things. That your work ethic sort of stops, your attitude changes. So they were two flaws, two of the main flaws.
What about so how do you know how you're going to improve on that then? Have you figured out how you're going to, because it seems like the type of thing you would do, like you personally, because you get it. It's like you know how to develop things. So how are you going to improve on your flaws then?
Overthinking something that I think, being a young coach the more I coach, the less I overthink. Because the way I'm going to I plan to overcome overthinking, because it's a real big problem of mine, is to present in front of more people, is to public speak. Because the more people who I see and I do things in front of, the less I will overthink. Because actually, if I'm successful at doing these things, at one point I will understand that these people are only watching me and I'm the one who's doing it. And don't worry about what's happening around. Focus on what you're doing. That's something that I struggle with at the minute, but the more I get to do public speaking and the more sessions I coach, the more new people I meet, the better I'm starting to get at not overthinking.
Good, amazing. And yeah, what I always get people's social, obviously if you want to get people's social medias to help promote them and tag them and everything that is to do with them on my social. So do you want to give everybody, depending on what social medias you use, obviously, the ones that you use that people could maybe follow on or get in touch with you on, or maybe somebody's struggling with mental health and they're like, you seem to know what you're talking about. I've got this advice. Again, that was all non-medical advice. Like, we're both not medical practitioners of that, but we just have experience. That's a difference. So do you have any social medias of that we could shout out for you?
Yeah, so I've got my LinkedIn one. You should be able to find it off your profile, and then I've got my Snapchat, if anybody wants to add me on that. It's WACKO Wacko 003. They're the main two that I use. I have a Twitter account, but I don't use it very actively. So they're the main two that I tend to use just to keep in touch with family and friends.
Awesome. Yeah, right. Anyway, I appreciate your time, and what I will say is one last thing is that, because I think it would quite help yourself, is if you were to watch this in I was about to say an hour's time. I didn't mean that. I meant 10 years time, and you were to say, what would you say to yourself then? Like, what if you were to able to sit in front of yourself, like how we're sitting today, what would you say to yourself?
In 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, yeah.
Did I achieve my goals? How did I have the right mindset? Was I looking at things the same way, as I was in 10 years' time? What did I do right and what did I do wrong? Look on the pros and cons. Were you talking any sense, sort of thing?
Yeah, awesome. Anyway, as I say to everybody, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I appreciate everything. And the mental health aspect of everything we spoke about was something that I hope everybody does overcome. But again, my messages are always open. I'm sure Jack's the same, and everybody that currently said that on the show is the exact same. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you very much, guys.